So this is the unit that we've touched on in year 10. It's designing for the year 11s, for the year 10s obviously haven't touched this yet. It's designing a house. Yeah, so it's the unit where you're learning how to be an architect essentially. And we'll have a look at it now. All right. So first we're going to do a small version of it. It's obviously going to be a bit of a silly version. You'll see what I mean when we get to it. But it's going to be a small version of the bigger thing that you're going to do for a proper house. Okay, so today we're looking at the basic design stages. All right. What is a new build? So the new build is building a house from scratch. Right. So when you've got an empty site and you are building a completely new house, that's called a new build, for obvious reasons. That is the sort of thing we are doing. All right. So the design that you are going to be doing will be a new build, it'll be an empty site. So you are completely free to design whatever you want, as long as it matches what the clients want. Who are the clients? The clients are the people that are going to pay you. They're the ones who the product, in this case, house is for. And so obviously they're quite important. It's quite important to know what they want so that you're producing the right sort of house. Design stages is how we build that. Yeah, how we get from a blank piece of paper to obviously a finished house. Yeah, in our case, we're obviously not going to get to the point where we're building a house. But we are going to get to the point where it's finished design. So, stage 1, we have something called the client brief. Stage 2, we have something called concept ideas. Stage 3, we have a review of the ideas. And stage 4, we have our final design. Right? This is just a way of building up a design from lots and lots of ideas to a final idea. Okay, so stage 1. Stage 1 is client brief, and it's looking at all those things. I'm not expecting you to understand all these things straight away. Right, we're just going to look at them very simply today. So a client profile is a bit like a profile on Facebook. I know it's a bit of an old thing for you to be using, but I'm assuming all of you know what the profile looks like on Facebook. It's obviously just got information about that person. Yeah, so in this case, it would be information about who the clients are, their ages, what their jobs are, what their interests are, obviously quite important when you're building a house. What sort of family they have, so kids, what those kids are interested in, hobbies, sports, that sort of thing. Also income, so it obviously depends how rich they are, depends on what sort of house you're going to build, what sort of things they can afford, what sort of things they expect, and information like that. Site details is the next thing there. That is all about the site that you're going to build on. All right, so that is the size of the site, because obviously you need to know how big the size of the site is so that you can know how big your garden in your house is going to be. All right, so we are designing the garden as well, we're not just designing the house, although the house will be the one we do in detail. The area detail is less important, but also a factor. All right, so what is around? Is it in the middle of a city? Is it in the middle of the countryside? That makes a difference, because if we're in the middle of a city, then obviously perhaps those people won't have a car. A lot of people that live in the city don't require a car because the public services are so good. Whereas if in the middle of the countryside, then obviously they might have 2, maybe even 3 cars if they're rich, because they need to access everything that's far away. Budget, that's fairly important. All right, we won't be doing that in detail. All right, so don't worry, there's no maths involved. But we are going to be told what sort of budget they have. Right, so that will give me an indication of the sort of size of house, how good the house is going to be. And all of those 4 things you put together into a client brief. And the client brief is essentially splitting those things into explaining what they are, so who the clients are, what the site details are, what the area details are, what the budget is, and then saying what you could do for each of those different things. All right, so to give you an example, part of the client profile might be that they have 3 kids, yeah, and one of those kids is really into football. Okay, so that's what you'd say in your client brief. You then say what you could do for the house and garden with regards to that bit of information. So in other words, the most obvious thing would obviously you put in a small astro pitch with perhaps their particular team that they support or the team they play for, maybe badge somewhere on the pitch, maybe into a dugout, or maybe on the actual astroturf. Yeah, and then what you've done there is you've done what you need to do for your client brief. You've said what the thing is, and you've given a design potential design point. A promise, basically, is what it is. Right? So you're going through the different things, and then you're giving a promise for what you're going to do for those different things. All right? Another example would be the site details. All right? So the site might be 30 metres by 52 metres. All right? You're going to say that in your client brief. Then you're also going to say What does that mean for our design? Well, it means that we have to keep our house to 20 metres by 10 metres so that we can have a big garden and a fairly good house. Okay, forget those figures obviously wouldn't work. Okay, so we're going to do a mini version. This is your first little project. All right, a little mini version of what I've just said. Okay, so we have a very, very simple, obviously the normal client profile would be 1 or 2 pages long. Okay, the normal site details would be about a page long. Right, ours is obviously just a sentence each. Okay, and the area details as well would be a little bit more detailed. Right, so this is a very simple thing. It's not going to take you long. Right, it's just getting you into that idea of how this is laid out. So our client profile here is to do with my dog Bear. Right, that is Bear the dog. He obviously has no kids because we chopped something off when he was younger. He has some information here. So he likes a big bed, right? Loves cheese and loves to play sports. Yeah, any sort of ball, absolutely crazy. So apart from the big bed, maybe a pretty normal dog. Now, as with any client profile, some of those bits of information may be irrelevant to your design. Some of them obviously might be very relevant. Okay. So our site details is we have a patio area, 5 metres by 5 metres, that is over here. Okay. And it is edged by a hedge on one side and a fence on the other side. There's no information as to what the other sides are, so presumably they are just open into the rest of the garden. All right. What we're doing is we're going to build Bear a little doghouse and play area in that area. Right. So you're restricted to 5 metres by 5 metres. You obviously can't make anything bigger than that square. Right. And he needs some sort of house and some sort of outside area. Now, if we're looking at the client profile, the sort of things. So firstly, we would explain. So we're going to make a client brief from these two things. Right. We don't have any area details because we don't really need to know that. Don't need to know budget. We are going to look at these two things and we're going to explain each of these things in full sentences. Okay, so you're going to look at those and we're going to talk about the fact that, right, the client is Bear the dog. Yeah, he is a brown dog. You can describe him, blah, 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 blah. He's 12 years old if you really need to know. He obviously has no kids, so he's just a single man. Yeah, likes a big bed. Okay, so we can go through different things there, cheese, etc. All right. And then we're going to come up with some design promises, right? Now remember, as with any client brief, you don't need to stick to your promises. Yeah, you're trying to get ideas on paper. Okay, so we're trying to get ideas of what we could do to give Bear a big bed. Yeah, what we could do to give him an area where he could play with sports balls. Right, so it might be an area to store them. Okay, so you might come up with an idea. Okay, we could have an idea where we've got a big ball box here. Yeah, and it might have a cat flap in the bottom, so he can actually access it. And he can use his paw to try and pull them out, so he can actually access his own balls. Okay, so we come up with some good ideas. Don't just come up with one idea. So we could talk about the fact that it might be a ball box. Then another idea is we could actually have a bag of balls in his thing that he can't access, but obviously his owners can. Don't just be restricted by what's in the client brief as well. All right, so we obviously need to think sensibly about what dogs need as well. Yeah. So you could have a little area for his toilet, somewhere where it's nice and easy for the owner to clear up. That would be helpful. Okay, that's obviously not in the client profile, but we know that dogs poo and therefore they're going to need some area to do it. All right. So thinking about outside of the box as well, not just the things that are on that client profile. Yeah, not just the things that are on the site details. So how are we going to do this? How's this going to look? What I want you to do is I want you to sketch this area first onto a piece of paper. Right, it's obviously very simple. Yeah, you can put an actual physical looking hedge in there if you want to. Okay, but you could just do it as simply as I've done it there. Right. Then we are going to construct our client brief. Okay, and it's going to look like this. Right, so you can do it on the computer or you can do it on paper. Right, it doesn't have. This is obviously the best I'm looking for. Yeah, you might have slightly shorter sentences. Okay, but we're going to come up with 3 or 4 at least needs and a couple of constraints. Right? Constraints means a restriction. So a restriction would be something like it is a 5 by 5 meter area. Yeah. So you can mention that in the left-hand side. That would be the restriction. Okay. And design point is we can't make anything bigger than 5 by 5 meters. So our house, dog house, will only be 2 meters by 3 meters. Something like that. Okay. The needs are the things that he needs. Right. So he needs a big bed. Okay. He needs somewhere for sports balls. So again, you would say that in the left-hand side. He needs a big bed. needs a place for sports balls. On the right hand side is where you come up with some sort of solution or solutions. Okay, so your first bit to do is you sketch out the basic area, the basic plan, site plan. The second bit is you put together a client brief, right? Coming up with ideas. Don't think of this as a writing thing, yeah, and turn off about that. This is more about getting ideas down. Okay, it's just about getting ideas down, saying what the need is, saying what the restriction, constraint might be, and then getting some ideas down as to what you could do for Bear. Okay, and as I said, don't be restricted by client profile. Think about other things that you might want, that a dog might want. Okay, so the next thing we do is I want you to do mood boards. This is very simple. We just go to PowerPoint and Google Images. On your PowerPoint, you're going to copy Google Images of different dog houses. So you simply put into Google Images doghouse, or cool doghouse, or rich person's doghouse, or simple doghouse. You put that into Google Images and you basically just copy and paste onto a PowerPoint slide, I don't know, 8 or 9 of your favourite ones. Okay, that again is giving us ideas. It's all about getting ideas. Okay, that should take about 10 minutes. Then we're going to do some concept sketches. Okay, so that is rough sketches first off. So you're just getting a sheet of paper, A4 sheet, and you're just roughly sketching ideas of what a doghouse would look like. Okay, roughly sketching. So it's not going to have to be neat. Yeah, you can do it nice and rough. It's just about getting. So you could just draw a square, put a triangle on top. No, don't really like that. That's too simple. Do a rectangle, put a triangle on top. Yeah, that's a bit better, but maybe 2 triangles on top. Okay, so we're just getting rough sketches ideas down. Then I want you to go back once you've done about an A4 sheet of those rough sketches, and I want you to then pick 2 out that you like, and then you're going to do a neat version, right? You're going to do 2 neat versions. So you're going to pick 2 of those rough sketches, and you're going to do 2 neat versions. Then the review. We're then going to lay out our garden. So if we go back to our thing here, now that we know what the doghouse is going to look like, yeah, you pick one of those concept ideas you've done neatly, and we're going to put it in here. Yeah. Then we're going to redraw this and put the second one in as well. All right. Then you're going to design the rest of the garden. Okay. So anything else that might go in to the rest of the garden. Okay. You're then going to review that against your client brief. So all the things that you promised in the client brief. So maybe you said, right, because he wants a big bed, we're actually going to make a second floor to our doghouse, and that's where the big bed is going to go on the entire floor. Yeah, so 2 metre by 2 metre doghouse. The second floor is just going to be one big bed. Yeah. You're going to review that. So all you need to do is you go back to your client brief, and next to it, whatever you've promised in here, you're just going to put yes or no. Right. So if you promise something here, yep. So here we've promised that the big bed would need to be 3 metres by 3 metres. And the space above it at least 2 metres high. Yeah, if we've done that in one of our designs, we just put yes. On the other one, we put yes, or we put no if we haven't done it. Then, once we've done that, out of those 2 concept ideas that you did neat, that you've now reviewed, you then pick your favourite one and do your best work. And you do your best work by doing a floor plan. That's going to show the inside from above, but the inside of your doghouse. An elevation, which is going to show the front of your doghouse, as if you're looking at the front of it, just in 2D, so not in 3D, just in 2D. Yeah. And we're going to do that as best as we can. Now, if you've just gone through this video and it's all seemed a bit complicated, go through it again, but just pause it every so often. Yeah, you could even pause it, do the work, play the next bit, do that little bit of work, do the next bit. Okay. Any questions? Just email me.